Hello class, so this is going to be a supplementary video. My last video that I did that you should be watching this week is about using in-text citations in MLA format and gives you some best practices on using both in-text citations in the form of both direct quotes and paraphrases, and also shows you how to show attribution of those, or the parenthetical citation for those entries. So this is going to be a video about your works cited page. So in MLA formatting, anytime that you have direct quotes or paraphrases or the use of somebody else's work in some context in your own paper, you need to make sure that you cite those things. Not only in text, as my last video explained, but also you need to have what is called a works cited page. Now, your works cited page comes after your main text. So you'll have, your name block, the title of your work. You're going to write your work, from your introduction through to your conclusion. And then your works cited page will come after that. Now you need to use what is called a page break. So if you're in Word, I'm going to try and put a thing on here, screen capture. But you can you can insert a blank page and then work off of that new page. So you want to make sure that your works cited starts on its own page. It shouldn't, if you have like half a page of text on your conclusion, you don't start your works cited just by entering down a couple of times and then starting it on the same page as your last text was. You need to create a new page, a standalone page where your works cited will start. The works cited, you will actually label it as such, works cited. You should center that title in the middle of the page, so center it. And then you will double space the entirety of this page, just like you would double space the rest of your work in MLA format. When you are what you will put in your works cited page is an alphabetized list of all of the works that you have directly quoted from or paraphrased or mentioned throughout your work, okay? Like I said, it needs to be in alphabetical order. The way that you present those works, depending on the kind of work you're trying to cite, has very specific construction in terms of the pieces of information that you need to present. Your best friend here is going to be Purdue Owl Online. It's owl.purdue, purdue.edu. And they have lots of information about each of the different kinds of things that you might be quoting or paraphrasing. So books, journal articles, newspaper articles, web pages, DVDs or films, television shows, other, tweets, whatever kind of content you can pretty much think of that you might be quoting from or paraphrasing from or using as evidence in some manner. They usually have some sort of entry on their website that explains how to accurately put that information into your works cited page. Now, sort of a general makeup of these works. Your most typical thing that will come first is the author. So usually it's the last name of the author, comma, first name of the author, period. If there are multiple authors, and it'd be, whoever's the primary author or the first author listed in the work, it'd be last name, comma, first name, comma, first and last name of the second person, comma, first and last name of the second person. Let's say there's only 3, period. Then the title of the work, if there's a title of some other greater work that it appears in, then that comes next. It's a little bit complicated, I'll admit, because then you also need like publication information if it's from a book, or the volume and the number, if it's a journal article, the date, if it's, there's a lot of information that you might need. So this is why I'm going to suggest to you that you peruse Purdue L online. I'm going to link to a couple of things when I put this on our Blackboard page, particularly for books and periodicals, because those are probably going to be some of the primary things that you're going to use, because those are going to be like academic, books that you might use, or academic journals or newspapers, or perhaps magazines, depending, what you're doing. Those are going to be probably your most common things, but Purdue also has sections for other electronic sources like films, television shows, tweets, Facebook posts, like there's a ton of different stuff that you may end up having to cite at some point. And so you're going to need to know where to look to find the pieces of information that you need to put those things in your works cited page. I'm going to go over a couple of the typical constructions of a few of those things here in this video though. So for example, if you have a book, the order of information and the information that you will need, if you can find it, there are going to be some instances where some of this information is not available for certain kinds of books or whatever. Typically, you'll just move on to the next piece of information. But please note that most of the time, most of this information is going to be available. So if you try and tell your teacher like, oh, I couldn't find the publication date of this book, or I couldn't find the author's name, most of the time we are not going to believe you, because a lot of times it is available. You just need to look for it and know where to look for it. On a book, for example, you'll probably use, the cover to some degree, because you can find usually the title there and the author's names. If there's an edition, if it's like the second or third edition of the book or something, you can find that information there. The other thing is going to be the publication or copyright page, which is going to be like a couple pages in. There's usually information about like where the book was published, who the publishing company was, the year it was published, etc. Okay. So here's the order of information as it should appear if that information is available. The author of the work, then the title. Now the title, if it's a book title, for example, it's italicized. So big things are italicized, right? So the name of a book, the title of a television series, the name of a collection of poetry, the name of a musician's album, right? Smaller things are put in quotation marks. So for example, the title of an episode of a TV series, the name of a song on an album, the name of a chapter inside a book, the name of a poem inside an anthology of poetry, etc., right? So smaller things, quotations, larger works, italicized, okay? So it'd be author, title, other kinds of contributors. If it's a translated book from another language and the translator is listed, you would put the name of the translator in there. If it's a book that has editors, you are going to list the editors, etc. If there's a number or volume or an edition, you'll list that. The publisher's name, the publication date, the location of the publisher. So if it's, a publisher based in New York, for example, or New York City, you'll put New York City, right? Or if it's based in London, you'll put London, whatever. Most of that information is available on the copyright page. So a very basic format for a book, for example, though, would be as follows. The last name of your author, comma, first name of your author, period. The title of the book, italicized, period. City of publication, comma, name of the publisher, comma, publication date, which is usually the year it was published. Now, there are going to be variations on this, which I'm going to refer you to Purdue if, for example, you have several authors, or if there is a corporate author, meaning there is no actual author's name, like an encyclopedia or something that, just has like the name of a random publishing house, right? Or is created by a medical association or something like that, where there's no like specific author listed. It's just sort of a reference book of sorts or something. If there's a book with no author, or if it's a translated book, or if it's a republished book. So there are like a lot of different things. Like I'm just giving you the basic here, right? Or I did a second ago. But there are a lot of different nuances. So make sure you kind of look through and know what these nuances are. So that way, if they ever come up, you know where to come and see what the exact format would be for that particular situation. Okay. There might also be instances where you're only looking at a chapter of a work. So you'll have like most of the information of the basic, book, construct that I have, right? So it might be last name, comma, first name, period, the name of the chapter in the book that you're using in quotation marks, and then the name of the actual book. And then if it was edited by people, then you'd put like the first and last name, comma, ed to notate that that's the editor. And then you'd have your publisher, comma, the year of the book, period. And then you would put the page numbers. So if it was a chapter that spanned from like page 98 through 132, then you'd be pp.98 through 232. I don't remember if I gave you those exact page numbers, but you get the idea. Then there's also periodicals, for example, which basic would be, the author's name, right? So last name, comma, first name, period, title of the article in quotation marks, title of the periodical after that in italics, comma, the day, month, and year, comma, and then the pages that you use. So there's a variety of different information that you might need to provide depending on the kind of work that you're attempting to cite. So again, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with some of the basics. I'm going to link you to a few of those places in our Blackboard site, like around where I link this video. And I'll also put them in the box down below if you're looking at this on YouTube proper. So that way you can kind of see what the certain formats for some of these things are. Because you're going to want to make sure that you understand how to put together a works cited page and how to put it together correctly. The reason this is important is because to avoid issues of plagiarism or copying or paraphrasing exact text or ideas from someone without attributing the source in your paper, that's called plagiarism, right? So you need to give adequate information about where you got information for your paper from, whether you're providing it as evidence or just using it as an example of something, whatever the case may be, you need to properly cite that information. And so you need to do that in two ways. If you quote or paraphrase something, you need to have an in-text citation or a parenthetical citation, which is what my last video talked about. You also need to have information about that work on the works cited page. Now, one of the purposes of the works cited page is if your audience member or whoever's reading your paper wants to get more information about, ideas that you've presented from someone else or that you used as evidence in your paper, things like that, your parenthetical citation points to essentially or helps guide your reader to an entry on your works cited page, okay? And then they'll find, because your works cited page will be in alphabetical order, they'll find that citation on your works cited page, and then it'll have additional information about where they can find information, more information, right? So they can find the actual work that you quote from, whether it's a journal article, a magazine article, a book, whatever the case may be. So that way they could find it online, in a library, whatever, so they can read more on their own. The other thing that you need to know as far as your works cited page, a formatting issue, it utilizes what is called, I already told you it needs to be double spaced, it needs to be in alphabetical order, but it also needs to utilize a hanging indent. So what that means is if you have an entry for a book or a magazine or whatever that goes more than one line, it means like the first line is going to come all the way over, your second line is going to come in a little bit, and then you'll start your new entry, and that new entry is going to start all the way over here and then come over, and then it'll be, I'll show you an example on the screen so my weird things don't look weird, like me just like whooshing my hand across my screen. And I'll also show you right here how you format that in Word, because that's one thing that you're going to need to learn how to do. Essentially, you're going to, what I would usually do is I'll put my entries in, I will wait until I am done at putting in my entries. I'll highlight all of my entries, right click, and then go to the paragraph function on the menu that pops up. And then from there, on that menu, I'm going to show you here, I believe there is a like a special, there is a feature where it says, where you can toggle to where it says hanging for your indent. So I'm going to click that, I'm going to apply it, okay. And then you'll see once I come to my screen here, you'll notice that it puts the hanging indent on there. So the first line of each entry goes all the way over to the right, or excuse me, the left margin, and then everything else is of that entry is tabbed in on the additional lines of that entry, and that happens for each of the entries that you have. Okay. So I hope this helps. Make sure that you're working on or practicing formatting your entries on your works cited page. This is something that most of your instructors are going to be pretty particular about as you go through your time here at NIU. Please note also that different citation styles have different requirements as far as what information is needed and what order that information goes onto your or into your entries, etc. And that's true of both your works cited page and in-text citation. So for those in my class this semester who are taking English 103, we're working on MLA citation style. Usually the second sequence of rhetoric and composition, which is English 203 at our university. Most instructors use APA format in the second semester, although I won't guarantee that by any means, because I've heard one or two instructors don't, but for most of you, it will probably be true that you'll be learning APA format next semester. There are similarities, but there are differences as well. So keep in mind that different citation styles require different pieces of information and in different orders on your works cited page, and also require different pieces of information in your in-text citations and things too. So that's something that you should keep in mind. As always, if you have any questions about any of this, please let me know. I hope this was at least somewhat helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll address those on a one-on-one basis with each of you, okay? I'll chat with all you soon, and thanks for watching.